It should be working. There we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest post-game edition of the Kenney and Renny show. I am the Kenney portion, Ken Weeb from Sportsnet, and I'm happy to be joined by my good friend Kevin Olszewski, whose audition on the Instagram lives were so successful that on a night when Sean Reynolds is heading off for an MRI after getting his prediction wrong, we're having a pinch hitter, one of my favorite pinch hitters, and happy to have you back, KO. How's everything going
Renny
in your
is
home?
on the case, and it's not good. Thanks for making me enjoy that one, Weaver. Really appreciate it for bringing me on for the sixth consecutive loss. That's great. Great. Thank
Good,
you.
good timing, right? This is all about the
Appreciate it.
therapy set. This is all about the therapy sessions. Sandy's happy to see you, so there we go. We'll start off with some good news there. We'll just start here. What were your impressions of this latest loss for the Jets? They who built a 3-1 lead and suddenly are staring up at a 5-3 defeat after giving up four unanswered.
It's harder and harder to buy the everything's okay and we're going to be fine and we're figuring things out. No, you're not. Because if you were, you're beating a team that doesn't have Brendan Gallagher and Shea Weber and Thomas Tatar in the lineup. Sorry, that's just the way it goes. You're not dealing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. You're not dealing with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. This Montreal Canadiens team is a beatable team right now. Should be if you're a good hockey team. The good hockey team I thought you were for about 4 months. And now I'm starting to teeter like everybody else. It's unacceptable what happened today. You can't have leads of two. And I know there was puck luck. There were so many things, right, that just undid them. And I try to have some perspective, right, Ken? We've been through this
Sure.
before. We've seen teams lose. We know you go on losing streaks. You know that there's confidence issues can creep into your game. You know there's bad habits that you can, get entranced with. You know they're dealing with injuries. There's going to be a transition there. So in the back of my mind, I'm like trying to rationalize it and being like, well, okay, there's always reasons why things are going south. But when they go this far south, it's like I'm trying to dig out of the hole and I can't see the sunlight anymore because it's too far. I'm too far down into the earth, and that's where it feels like it's going. Every time they claw, a little bit of sand, the dirt cloud, is falling back in on them, and that's what I thought happened tonight. Like, were they excellent? No, but did they have leads? Yes. You get 2 goals from Trevor Lewis and a first goal from Paul Stastny. You can't win the hockey game. This can't happen, right? It can't. You can't keep having no-shows from Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. You just can't. Or this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose out, and you're going to be lucky if you make fourth.
Yeah, for me, I texted Sean during the intermission. I'm like, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, it has been very apparent they need a reunion. KO. I don't know. I mean, if you agree or not, but to me, I mean, this team's just not generating much 5-on-5. And you're right. I mean, in a game where the Jets get two fourth line goals from Trevor Lewis and two beauty goals at the same time, those are games teams have to win. If a team gets two goals from the fourth line, they need
There's
to
your
win.
slump buster, right? You're out of it.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
this is what more could you dream for? We drew it up. The fourth line bailed us out. The hero that we needed with the cape on turns out to be wearing number 23 of all numbers. Who would have thunk it? You got to win that game. You got to find a way.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, and the Canadians basically left the door wide open. The Canadians have been leaving the door open for the Calgary Flames for the last month. It's been incredibly baffling.
Let's
To
put too
me.
many on the ice and see if we can lose this game. Here, Jets, do you want it? Gobble this up. High sticking penalty, 4-on-4, done. I mean, the power play is non-existent. We can see that. All the things that should work for them and play into their advantage, it's not working.
Yeah, it's very strange right now, and that development here. And again, you totally understand why some moves have been made. I mean, of course, the Jets are missing Nikolai Ehlers. There's no doubt about that. I would say that Adam Lowry coming back on Monday will help them. But so where are they going to go? Sean and I
Is
have
he
been
going to
having.
score goals? Like, is that where the offensive production, like, they're not creating anything offensively?
Yeah, Sean and I have been having this debate, KO, about where Pierre-Luc Dubois lands. And I mean, I understand why they bumped him down, but right now I totally understand what people say. Well, why would you put him back in the top six? Well, they need to get him going. I mean, they need to get him moving. I mean, right now he's not going. Right. I mean, for me, I would bump him up. I think that I would maybe put him with Scheifele and Kyle Connor and see where things go. I think there have been some signs for Wheeler and Paul Stastny together, but overall, you just aren't seeing enough. I mean, Sean's suggestion is to try Dubois on the wing with Lowry, and I mean, I can understand the premise there too, and sort of creating that shutdown unit. But where do you see Pierre-Luc Dubois fitting in? I mean, a lot of people wanted to see Matthew Perreault with Pierre-Luc Dubois, but I mean, I understand the premise of that as well.
Oh, he fixes everything. Didn't you read Twitter?
Right.
Except he didn't. Like,
yeah,
sorry, you know, it's the same with Mason Appleton needs to be in the top 6, right? Except the guys who are scoring are 30 plus apparently lately for the Winnipeg Jets and nobody else.
Yeah, no doubt. One quick one here, Sparky. Lowry was not healthy enough to play. Lowry skated for the first time in a non-contact jersey today, and he will play on Monday. This wasn't Paul Maurice holding out Adam Lowry, but you also have to remember that you need Adam Lowry for game 1.
Yeah, you want him as close to 100% as you can get him for that, right? These games, as much as they're important to us right now, and we're all freaking out, at the end of the day, this is going to be a playoff team, right? They just got to win 1 or 2. They can do that, right, Ken?
Yeah, well, you would think it certainly has been interesting there for sure. Okay, some folks are saying my mic is low.
It's just that I talk really loud. I'm a yeller. I'm fired up. I haven't done this in a while. The team keeps losing, so I'm a yeller.
I love that you're fired up. We like that all the time.
Wow.
Just as a strange development here, the good old microphone. We had it perfectly the other day, and today there's not happening. So, anyways, Ken's microphone is still going to be something happening here for us. What else could we? Where else do you want to go, KO? I mean,
you asked me where I see Pierre-Luc, right? Yeah. And that's one of the issues, right? The big issues is that you're not getting much out of him, right? Wherever you put him on the wing, you put him, in the middle to make him more comfortable, right? Which I understand. You try to put players in a position to succeed. Then you have injuries, so you have to, this was the strength of the team, right? We got big bodies up,
depth, yeah.
Up the middle. That this was going to help, and the reality is you're not getting anything from him. Right? Like, and until you get production from him, the offense has dried up. So, I mean, where do you put him? Like, I don't know. Like, I would agree with Sean that he's probably better served on the wing right now because I like what Stastny's doing, right?
Right. But then if you're going to put him on the wing, he had some success with Scheifele. So for me, I would bump him into there, at least until Ehlers is ready. And for me, here's the thing for me, KO. Because when Ehlers is back, he's in the top 6. Give Dubois a chance to see if he can get something going in terms of being that guy, strength along the boards. And if it doesn't work, then you have no choice but to put him on the wing, on the checking line, and just tell him, you know what? Don't worry about
go be offense. A big body and just do what you did against Toronto last year, and exactly. the offense will come. Playoff style hockey, you'll rise to the occasion, right? For right now, I think if you go talent for talent, right? He needs to be playing with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, and Pierre-Luc Dubois needs to be your top line.
Yeah, interesting.
Brian, but I mean, until they're getting something out of Scheifele, no offense, they're in big trouble, right?
For sure. And Brian, I do like long-term Pierre-Luc Dubois with Stastny, but I think right now Wheeler is a better fit with Stastny, and I think that Dubois has said he prefers to be on the right wing. So then for me, it makes more sense to try him with Scheifele from there. Right now, here's a guy that needs to get his confidence going. And to me, that's the biggest thing. So you got 6 games to try to get this sorted out. And Paul Maurice kind of intimated that he wanted to try another. It seems as though there's one more turn of the blender coming. So where is that going to take
Trevor Lewis on the top line? Sorry.
No,
I might be a little sarcastic tonight in the Renny seat.
No, it's interesting, and there too, Brian. I also thought he would be a great fit with Matthew Perreault, but that just hasn't seemed to materialize yet. I also thought. I mean, this is no offense to Christian Vesalainen, because I saw a couple of other impressive things from him. I saw a really good net drive early. once Christian Vesalainen gets the confidence to start shooting, this guy's got an incredible shot. So once he gets that shot in utilization, I think it can work. But right now, it's just not really clicking for him either. I mean, again, I think he's starting to get things moving, but I really like Jansen Harkins lately. I think that Jansen Harkins is a guy that might be able to help provide a little bit of a bump to that top six in terms of offense generation. So for me,
well, remember his chemistry with Scheifele, right? In
right.
small doses that we saw a year ago, and I know a year and a half ago now. It was a long time ago, but we did see that, right? And when you're scratching and clawing and trying to find a win and just dig for something, we want to change, right? We want to see something, and maybe that's a place that they could go. It's not like you could look at what he's been doing and say he's not earning it. Right? Like on the eye test alone, if you're the coaching staff, you're like, he's turning his legs, he's moving, he's getting in on the forecheck. Could he dig pucks out for Scheifele? And then we saw that, his brain could keep up with that, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Brent doesn't like that line. I thought that line actually was pretty good in the second Oilers game, generating around the net. But tonight I didn't see any chemistry there. It's interesting. I mean, the other part I wondered if the Jets could bump Kyle Connor up, back up with Scheifele, and maybe you move Kopp to the right-hand side. I mean, I know some folks are, for some reason, they're suggesting. I mean, Kopp has 18 points in his last 20 games, so I don't want to hear that Andrew Kopp is not capable of playing top 6 minutes. He's been one of their only productive players during that stretch of time.
Which speaks volumes as to why they're going the direction that they're going.
Sure. No, exactly. So I wonder if you could do that, but then now you're asking.
You can't have Connor and Scheifele. That's what everyone will tell you, right?
Well, but you can have it if you have the defensive conscious and Kopp on the right. That's why I'm saying I think that's the one way that you can get it going. But I mean, it's true. I mean, you can line blend all you like. Right now, the blender has not landed on something that is working. So that's why I'm saying you're going to have to try something else. Sean has said it often. The problem for me, the Jets have just not had enough games, KO, where their top 6 has been rolling at the same time, in the same game. One night it's the top line, one night it's the second line, but they haven't done it a lot together, which has really been a problem. So now you've got 6 games left and you're not sure what you're going to land on. You're basically in the blender game. You're playing roulette because you don't know what your safe place is, right?
Is this saying to you, though, the fact that they've moved Dubois down, that they don't believe he can be that guy? Not right now, right? He's 22 years old. I'm not saying long-term and where he's going to be. That we've seen enough from you, Pierre-Luc. We know what you are right now. What you are is, somewhere a little better than, we get a little more out of you than we got out of Patty, right? On nights when Patty was quiet, but you don't score like Patty can on nights when Patty's scoring. So therefore you're moved, down the lineup. And if we had any confidence at all that you'd find some chemistry with Scheifele, you would be up there. Like they'd rather have Mason Appleton in that role. And based on what we've seen, I probably would too, right? Yeah, I'd want to see it at the very least.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm kind of the opposite, and I know Sean was on that path as well. For me, it's more a matter of putting him against third line competition to get him the confidence required to feel good offensively, so that you can use him in the top 6 in the playoffs when you're asking him to go up against McDavid and Draisaitl or Matthews and Tavares. But again, you certainly understand why both. If
you want confidence, play on the 4th line in Winnipeg. It's the best line. They'll get scored against. Now, apparently, Trevor Lewis is going to score a couple goals, in jest, right? But
for sure.
When you're going to have Lowry back the next game, right? We're all pretty confident just by what the coach said today. He skated. He's in a contact uniform. He's going to have a full practice. He's going to be back. Do you go right back to Kopp, Appleton, Lowry and say, okay, that's one piece. We know what that is, what it will do, what it can do for us. It will generate some offense. And then you slide Pierre-Luc back up with Connor and Scheifele. Can you run Pierre-Luc, Scheifele, and Connor in your own end? Will you ever get out of your own end?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I do think that it's worth trying out here just based on, again, we also know, Paul Maurice feels his safe place would be Wheeler there. And then you get Dubois back with Stastny and kind of see where that takes them. But Man, it is very. There are interesting times. I want to pivot a little bit, and again, maybe we'll save some of this discussion for when Murat pops in. But let's you and I dig into Hellebuck a little bit here. I wrote in my column after Wednesday's game. I certainly understand why he started today. Given the magnitude, and they think that they're going to try, and they wanted to try to snap that streak off at 5. But for me, today was a good opportunity, and this is not hindsight. Again, I feel free to look at the column from Thursday morning. I thought that this was a good time to mix it up. You give Hellebuck a couple-day break. There's the 2-day break before the Ottawa game. Again, I'm not saying he's tired, but what I'm saying is he's played now 14 of the last 15.
You're talking reset. That's all. Not
I don't even
biomechanics. We got to go back to the back to the drawing board. No, he's fine, but he needs just a mental reset more than a physical one.
Yeah, and I mean also too. I mean it also is just change the psyche of the group. I mean for me, I mean you agree with this, KO. I know this, but Dave Tippett going to the guess what? You get the backup in the last game against the Oilers because you know what? If you beat the Oilers, you beat the backup. Big deal. And on the flip side, if you can't beat the backup, how do you expect to beat us in a series? So for me, I thought the Jets could have kind of flipped the script in this one here today. You know that the Canadiens are going to be desperate because the Flames are breathing down their neck. So when you start the backup, you kind of put your team on high alert. We know the Jets have confidence in Laurent Brossoit, but you also know that a team kind of knows they have to be buckling down defensively when the backup is in net. That's not a knock on the backup. Brossoit's been one of the best backups in the NHL this year, but
you're also not facing elite shooters right now on Montreal, right? So it's another perfect spot. I would agree with you with that. Like, it would have made sense. But I think there's also on the other side of that balance beam, Ken, is the desperation of we just need a win, right? Like we just need to get one. And this was a pretty good opportunity with Hellebuck. I think if you look at it big picture and say, let's get this one and then we'll deal with what's ahead, right? And then we can kind of put that in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rob Mahoney, I'm not saying the loss is not on Hellebuck at all. That's you're not listening to what I'm saying. What I'm saying was this was an opportunity to get him some rest. That has nothing to do with goaltending. The Jets' goaltending was not the issue. Their inability to get clears was a big problem. I mean, again, yes, some of that was self-inflicted for sure. And yeah, as you mentioned, Kale, there was a couple bad bounces there. I mean, Yoel Armia, I don't think he intentionally kicked it into the slot to Suzuki, but that's where the puck went. The other one, again, we've seen this. I mean, again, I tried to ask Trevor Lewis about it. Like, we've seen this movie now for the last several games, right? We've seen teams generate traffic. We've seen teams get traffic on power plays. Once again, just to look at this special. This is like WrestleMania where the Undertaker is coming in.
Is that Sean Reynolds' music?
What's the music? Yeah. That sounds like Sean Reynolds' music.
Here, I'll smash some glass in the background so it sounds like a dramatic
Steve Austin entrance. Here you go, Sean.
I know I'm doing a crappy job when the boss shows up. It's like you got to stop talking with that guy in the middle.
Boys, a long-time listener, first-time caller. I wanted to throw a question to you guys, and I hope you didn't touch on it earlier in the show. I've been listening. I missed the very top of it. But I just kind of wanted to pose, and I wanted your guys' thoughts on the idea of after that Scheifele benching, how you think the team has responded and how problematic it may be that after that benching for the rest of that game, the next game, and then today, the response that we're seeing from that. Usually when a coach gets to a point where he's benching someone, it's almost like a last resort kind of idea. Has Paul Maurice spent his last resort and put himself in a position where there's really nowhere else to go now if there's a lack of effort like we feel that we've seen in some of the games and some of the plays since?
Yeah, for me, I'll start, KO. It was a risky card to play. We knew that. We talked about it. I wrote about it. I don't think it necessarily backfired because Mark played with fire in the game after, and the last game I thought he was fine, but he definitely was not as involved as he needed to. Speaking of the microphone, certainly not as involved as he needed to be in this game this evening. And hey, I wrote about it at the time. How Mark Scheifele responds to the benching will determine where the Jets place. And right now, they're going to either place third or fourth. So they're going to need him to elevate his game. There's no doubt about that.
What if it was less about Scheifele? And I know it was because I watched the play, and it was a long time coming. But he didn't get a pop from the other guys, Sean. And I get what you're saying, right? So the desired, sometimes the coach does it, right? We've been part of teams, you know, the deal where the top guy gets benched because this is a message that everybody's got to, you know, what Paul Stastny was talking about the other night, that, you know, we've been cheating. We're all on the wrong side of the puck. Use him as an example because Paul knows that they've got a relationship and that's built up, that he can do that with Mark. Mark's still going to respect him. There's still going to be, it's going to be okay. But he didn't get that pop from the rest of the team, right? He got it from Scheifele for one game, Ken. I'd agree with you, right? So the desired effect did not happen, I think is the only way to put it. Now, is Scheifele just not playing because he's PO'd about it? You know, is this his, you know, protest of I was mad about that? He wants to win as much as everybody else. He wants the points as much as everybody else, right? So I don't think a player of his caliber, of his makeup, goes down that path. I don't think he does. If he does, it's big trouble for everybody, obviously. Right?
I think you touched on it, KO. I think that I'm not so much concerned about what Mark Scheifele did afterwards, although I would think that there would be a level of grind to his game that would just, like, he should be the last player on this team to look like he's not giving maximum effort after that situation happened. But I entirely agree with you, KO, in the idea that I'm looking to the rest of the team to say, okay, we've had our assistant captain who's been here. I'll turn it this way. That should work out better. Our assistant captain got called out for everybody to see for his effort. He came back out, and to Ken's point, I thought gave a real good effort after that, you know, immediately after that. My concern... Look,
there's accountability in the room, right?
That could have been a rallying cry. That could have been a time for the Winnipeg Jets to kind of say, look, our guy got called out. It's time for us to stand up. That wasn't just a circuit breaker to wake up Mark Scheifele. It should have been a circuit breaker to wake up the entire team. And I just don't think we've seen that. And to me, I find it concerning after that situation. Clearly, Paul Maurice doesn't like benching players. We would have seen it before. I was talking with Huss the other day, and I mean, he's not in a position where he can be like Tortorella and just bench guys until the team misses the playoffs, because that's not his concern. He's working towards something else. Paul Maurice has to balance trying to get his team in line with getting some results and getting this team put together by the end of the year. And I just think that he pulled out a tactic that he does not go to kind of an emergency break glass, an emergency situation. He broke the glass and has not liked what he's seen since. And I find it a little bit concerning, the response. Like I said, not necessarily as much from Mark Scheifele, although I think he's slipped a little bit since then, but just the rest of the team. You know, you want to have your captains, you want to have your letters backs. I don't think we've seen that since this situation.
Let's bring in Murat Atesh from The Athletic. Murat, what are your thoughts on the Scheifele gate and the requisite response?
First off, hi everybody. Wow, thank you for having me. I see a drum kit. We're settled. Mark Scheifele
band here. We got you and you got the guitar. We got the makings of a pretty good band here for out of the 90s.
It's a Barbie drum kit for what it's worth, guys. So just tone her down, okay? We're not going too metal on you just yet.
I got to go, boys. KO, thanks for covering. Murat, it's great to see you finally came on the show, although you only come on when you're not on. I don't know. I had to show up to make sure you could see I see you. So there we go.
Take it personally.
Black and body pin about rivalry. Yeah, we got that.
See you, boys. Great job.
Sean heading for an MRI. Sorry to interrupt. For those folks who missed the pregame show, nothing serious, but we've got him on the the injured list here for tonight. So,
oh dear.
Back to you.
I just think that what I heard earlier about the idea that it's unique for Mark Scheifele to have been benched is the driving point for all of this for me. It's not something that Paul Maurice goes to the well on very often. Certainly we haven't seen even just minutes reduced, even him pulled off the top line, him miss a power play shift prior to that game. I thought that was a very, very big deal. And the fact that it was, I understand the point that he's a leader. He's one of the best players if he is made to see consequences, everybody will be on alert. But I personally think it's more about Scheifele, because you saw 2 opportunities on that shift to get off the ice. He didn't take them. And then it was a slow change on his way off the ice.
Was the big loop around behind the net too, right? And the slow change, because that was a bad route, Magellan. Like
his last stride was on his way to the net. It wasn't even on his way back towards the bench. His last stride, if you go through it. So I mean, sure, a bad play by a good player, and then the consequences come down. I think the reason, and you hear Paul Murray say this before, you can't complain about something if you're not actively trying to fix it. I think with Mark Scheifele, since training camp, we've heard him say, you go, you do the back pressure, you play right, all of these things, you play defense, it turns into offense. He's moved from a below average defensive impact player last year to average this year, which is honestly a step forward. This is something that he's worked on. It's a big part of his game. And then he makes a mistake like that. I think it's just a response to an ongoing thing. This year they've been working on it, and then it went off the rails.
Yeah, so I mean, again, the last time Mark Scheifele, I had to go back and look it up. I remembered, I couldn't remember if it was the 10 men in the penalty box game, and it was not. It was 2016, where that whole line of Scheifele, Wheeler, and Patrick Laine were benched after taking the 34-second shift in the third period. Didn't see another one, but again, that game is that's an early season game where they had been busy. This is not the team is 7 games or 9 games away from the playoffs and trying to compete for second place. You cannot send a louder message than sitting the player that you've been reluctant, if not unwilling, to bench. Rod, and you mentioned it. He's made strides in terms, at times shift length, but especially in terms of determination and effort. And again, the reason why, for some folks that were baffled by sometimes he's too competitive, I want to just explain that one quickly, not to you, but to the fans who've been wondering. In Mark Scheifele's head, he saw a potential to get to the net and turn it into an odd man rush. At a minute 14, you're not going to beat the defenseman to the far post. But in your head, if you're Mark Scheifele, you think, I'm trying to tie this game. Sometimes your brain tricks your body into trying to do things that you are unable to do. And I think that was the mental gymnastics that he went through. But as you mentioned, Murat, when everybody else who was on the ice at the same time as you were have already departed, and you're in a position where you can safely change, that was the move that needed to be made.
Yeah, as simple as that. I think that I agree with you wholeheartedly. That quote may have been confusing to some, but being competitive in that situation, the story Mark Scheifele tells himself about Mark Scheifele is that he is a game breaker. Any minute, any time of game, opportunities there, he's going to make the play that ties the game, that brings it all back to wherever it needs to be. You saw it even at the end of, what was it, a 55-second minute overtime shift against New Jersey 2 years ago. He makes that incredible back check, goes in alone, falls over exhausted after he scores early on in the season. He's just done it so many times at big moments that I think he's learned the lesson that he can do it, even if it works for him less often than it does.
But the message that the coach is trying to get through is that you're on the wrong side of the puck more times than you're on the right one. Like that's where the cheating is happening. He's not blowing the zone for offense. He's on the wrong side of the player. And what he's saying is, when you have Dustin Byfuglien on the ice, for example, you can get away with that. When you have Derek Forbort on the ice, we need you down low on the right side of the puck, on the right side of the man, between your net and where you have to be between the guy that you're defending and your net. If you're not on that side of it, it's not going to work. Even if you have a magical stick and there is a chance that you can knock that puck down and go the other way, you've got to err on the side of being the defender first. And that's what he's not doing, and he's still not doing it, right? And he may never do it. Offensive players don't like to. I get it. And I get that he's got that tool in his toolbox. But the recent run of what's going on the ice would prove that he's not getting it done, because he didn't get it done tonight.
Rod, I got a quick one before. I know we don't have you for a massive amount of time here. I'd like to shift to the defense here. I know early in the year we were both kind of banging the drum for DeMello Morrissey. I've kind of changed the tune on the drum beat. I'd actually like to see more Pionk and Morrissey right now, because I also think the secondary part of that, I think that Derek Forbort's level has definitely slipped. Certainly at the start of the year, they were the most consistent pairing, but I think that DeMello could actually help Forbort because of his decision-making and then maybe two, you roll in the third pairing with Poolman and either Stanley or, even if you can take that top four, then you can also consider the Heinola option on the third pairing, because then you have a bigger mobile guy like Poolman there. Where do you land on why Paul Maurice has mostly been married to the pairings that he's run for the majority of the year this year?
I'm starting to think, and I've thought this before in pieces, but I'm starting to think it's an overreaction to Winnipeg getting muscled on the wall and in front of the net against Calgary last summer. I think this is about having a little guy and a big guy on every pairing. And the reason you don't see a lot of Morrissey DeMello is because of size. And the reason you don't see a lot of Morrissey Pionk is because of size. I think that size and strength and speed is one of the things that they like from Tucker Pullman on the top pair. Of course, everybody's saying, where's Logan Stanley if size is the issue? But I think that they've been trying to force balance as opposed to necessarily what's been more effective. I'm still on the Dylan DeMello train on that top pairing. I have to be honest about that. But I like the Morrissey Pionk theory. And if you look at the way that Winnipeg runs its bench, right? We look at the pairings, how they're listed right now, Morrissey, Pullman, Forbort, Pionk. But if you look at how they use TV timeouts at the third of the period and 2/3 of the period the way through. If you look at what happens after penalty kills, power plays, you always find that at the end of the day, the 5-on-5 minutes are Morrissey, Pionk, and then the rest, right? So they know who their best two defensemen are. If they're willing to run their bench in terms of a top pairing that they were convinced could do the tough matchups at their size, if they're willing to attempt it, they know that those are the guys. And then I just think it's a fear of size.
Right? Why not go sooner then? If that's what you're going to when you're chasing the game. I mean, we know that they both can defend. To me, it just seems, I know why they didn't go to it last year as often, because they needed to spread them out because they didn't have the personnel to run them together. Right now, it seems like they're at a point where there's really nothing to lose by trying them together.
Yeah, I like the there's nothing to lose sort of argument. There's nothing to lose argument is like 20 games ago. Why did we watch Ville Heinola play one game in a month kind of thing in terms of that or other opportunities to get youth in. 6 games from the end of the season, Ville Heinola is not going to come in and be the guy that turns everything around by himself because he can move the puck really well. But a little while ago with nothing to lose, I think you had a chance to get him into more of an NHL speed and NHL rotation. So he'd be ready by now. I think that the nothing to lose thing is honestly the truth. And I think that there's stubbornness in Winnipeg's lineup deployment right now. I really think there's a lot of stubbornness, especially after you see Wednesday's game and Monday's game go the way they did and see the exact same lines tonight as well. I think they believe that they can do it the way they know.
What about the coach's comment about panic? Because he doesn't want to show panic that the blender's coming out and we're putting in a bunch of kids and we need a savior to come from the Moose to change things up. That these are the guys that they committed to. These are the guys they're going to run with. These are the guys that are going to have to play themselves out of this slump because these are the guys that are going to play in the playoffs. And if he says he's not panicking, yet you're putting in and calling up from the taxi squad and inserting, you're seeing new combinations that you haven't seen all year, that is a sign of panic to your team, that your team could perceive that as.
So you're saying that, he's laid it out this way, presumably because he believes he can win. He's not winning. And now the idea of changing that up is like, whoa. I need to look strong here. I need to look like what I've been doing so far. Man, I mean, the moment that you're more worried about the optics of how strong you are than actually how strongly you're built, I think that's a slippery slope. I don't know if it's true or not, but that would worry me if that's the truth, and I think that's great insight.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Paul Maurice isn't someone who lacks confidence, so I don't think that he would be as worried about optics. I think that he'd be happy to, acknowledge that maybe the way that he thought wasn't right if he got a better result from something else. But it is interesting. I mean, just the reluctance to switch, it like you said, it sort of is bordering on stubbornness right now. I mean, again, a coach would argue that it's belief that he's leaning on, but right now it looks like, I mean, there's no arguing. It looks like it's getting him in trouble. So you've made all these changes and been willing to make all the changes up front, but not on the back end. To me,
is that to assess what's going on up front, Ken? Like, so, if you alter everything, then you don't know what actually made things better. So you mix the forwards up now because baseline, whether it's good or bad, and it hasn't been good, what you're getting from the back end? Is that possible? So that what you're really trying to assess is where do the pieces fit up front, because there's more moving pieces. You have few options at the back as it is. You want a constant?
It's interesting, and I totally understand you're looking for continuity somewhere. But I mean, again, it's always easier for us. There's no consequences for the three of us, right? So it's easy for us to find. It's easy for us to find solutions, right? I mean, again, I'm joking about that mostly, but it's true. When there are no consequences, then, I mean, part of our job is to try to get into the mind of the head coach, at least, and to try to see how the process is working. But this is the one thing that he has been reluctant to do, and I'm having a difficult time landing on why that is. And I just am curious Murat, do you have any other theories too that line up for you? I mean, other than the big small that we've already discussed.
Yeah, I also think that there's a real tendency to look at results first. I mean, we talk about, obviously I guess I wear the analytics hat and things like that. So I'll look at process stats, and we can all see the Jets get shelled and Hellebuck saves them. They win a lot of games sometimes. I do think that there's a tendency in their analysis of why things work well or don't, to start from goals and start from wins, and then retroactively figure out why did they win or why did they lose. So I think the Jets were winning a lot of games, and they were winning a lot of games playing the way that Paul Maurice wanted them to play, with the lineup card that he wanted to play. And I think that there's a confidence built up in that. So when we asked this week about the homestand, he referenced that road trip that they were so good on because they won a lot of games. I don't know that they were that good on. I agree with Paul Stastny. There were bad habits. You have people playing high in the zone. You have people cheating for offense at times. You have people on the wrong side of the puck, but they're winning. And I think that winning is the ultimate for these guys at the end of the line. That's where the competition is. And I think that there's more willingness to be stubborn as long as those results exist, even if it's against the flow of play.
Interesting. So we had talked about the blender before you got on, Murat. What is the next? Paul Maurice hinted at it in the post game when he mentioned Lowry, that there seemed as though he had one more kind of turn or one more flip on the switch here before the playoffs arrive. Where does it land for you, and where does Pierre-Luc Dubois land in this next push?
Well, I think a really creative look would be to go back to Connor Scheifele and Wheeler, as I just saw in the comments, I think, as well. I don't think we've seen too much of that. God, I'm stuck on Pierre-Luc Dubois right now because I have so much patience for his game. I have so much belief in his size, his strength. He can take over games at times, but he hasn't. I don't think it's fair to say that he's absolutely done that since he's come over. I think that the production-wise and things like that, you look at his awkward start in terms of quarantine, injury, etc. It just hasn't been in there, but I think he'll get there. Do you start that off by putting him in the top six, or do you relegate him to the third line as he is right now? The one thing I'll say with any confidence at all, Ken, because I know I'm like dodging the Lions question.
It's okay.
Is that injuries forced them to run a top nine with Scheifele, Stastny, and Dubois as centers, and I love it. I think that is a great building block for this team. Especially because of the strength on the wing when everybody's healthy, especially Nick Ehlers included. So if they can find a way to maintain that in some way, shape, or form, I know you got to double up somewhere, I'm happy.
Yeah, see, for me, I definitely heard that argument before and during. But for me, I think because of the ability for the third line to add the scoring element this year, I think they have been running a top nine. The problem is that their top six has not been able to perform at an elite level at the same time. So it hasn't made it look like, so they had three lines that could score, but generally only one of the three, if were rolling. So it had sort of caused an issue that way. But again, the problem with the top nine concept of the balance is that either means you're playing Kyle Connor on the third line, and then you're not using Lowry to go head to head with McDavid, or you're leaving somebody else is out of the mix there, right? Unless you're playing somebody on the offside. Yeah,
exactly. The way the team is built, there's quote unquote one too many skill guys and one too few two-way players to run a perfectly balanced set of lines from lines 1 to 3. I think because you end up with skilled players too deep who you might not trust to play against your McDavids. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know what the answer is there. I do know that for whatever reason, the Kopp, Lowry, Appleton group hasn't been as effective as the Perreault, Lowry, Appleton group from a numbers point of view. And I haven't been able to put my finger on exactly why that is. So even the top 9 that's used, I don't know what the answers are, but when you start going in, why is it working this way? Why are the results so bad? Why is the process great with Perreault and not as great with Kopp, who we know is a very good player? There's a whole lot of moving parts that I don't know what the right answer is.
I got a quick one. Somebody had mentioned here about Jordy Ben playing the right side. I addressed this the other day, but I'd like to pose it to you, Murat. I mean, my answer was the reason why Jordy Ben's numbers were so much better on the right side in Vancouver is because he was playing with Quinn Hughes. I don't see that option available to him here, and I don't think... I mean, he spent the majority of his career playing on the left side, so I don't see Jordy Ben on the right side with Logan Stanley as one. I mean, it is a possible solution, but I don't see that as being at the top of the, potentially fixing what's going on in the back end. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to go. In terms of shot metric types of analytics, the single most important factor is quality of teammates, right? So if Quinn Hughes is a dynamic young player who can really carry play, and maybe even if Quinn Hughes is the sort of player that gets a lot of offensive zone starts, I don't know if that's what happened, or if Quinn Hughes is the sort of player that you use in a counterpunching role against maybe not the top opposition, then there's all sorts of reasons why the with Quinn Hughes looks better than without Quinn Hughes, aside from his
he's all over
side.
the ice like a rover anyway, so Ben's playing on the left side half the time anyway, because Quinn's
For
all over the place.
F1D. I like it. Positionless play, that's the future.
It's
Everybody
the Buff
playing a little bit of
Rover
everything.
corollary, right?
The interesting thing, though, because I thought about that too, and I asked Thomas Drance, I asked Harman Dial, our athletic guys out in Vancouver, what's the deal? Why is he good on the right side and not as much elsewhere? And they're both convinced that it's actually him, that there is something about his game. And I was shocked because I came into it expecting to hear exactly what you said. And if Harman Dial doesn't think that, he's an analytics-heavy guy, then why? And I don't know.
Well, and the other part of that, too, on the flip side, again, we don't want to turn this into a Canucks debate here, but Nate Schmidt is someone who has preferred to be on the right side, and his numbers have been pretty good there, too. But this year he's played the bulk on the left-hand side, and I don't think it has gone as smoothly for him there. So, I mean, maybe it's just
keeping it simple, like knowing
outlier.
that you're on your backhand and being more aware, right? And adjusting to it. Not trying to do too much. I mean...
I thought the whole year for Vancouver would go better than it has, so I don't think that I have the answers about the Canucks. I thought they'd be very good.
No, fair enough. And Matty Ice, we've asked Paul Maurice about the defense, but it's clearly a road that he is not interested in going down, right? I mean, I asked about Jordy Ben, I think, on the Saturday before, and it just Paul Maurice sort of took the conversation sideways. So it's interesting. I mean, like you said, it looks like he's looking for continuity, but I'll be curious. I mean, again, I understand there were some fans upset that Paul Maurice wasn't more angry, or like the head coach cannot, in the middle of a 6-game losing streak, the head coach is not going to say, you know what time it is? It's panic time! Push that, folks at home, push that panic button. There's never been a better time. You know what I'm going to tell my players? I have absolutely no answers.
We're going to dress the Moose, the whole taxi squad next game, and we're going to see what happens and teach them a lesson.
Yeah, and one other quick one. Sorry, one of the commenters was wondering about the taxi squad. The taxi squad was meant as COVID insurance. It's not a matter of the Jets can take 5 guys off the taxi squad to give someone a load management day off. If you're on the taxi squad, you're not on the roster, and the team has to be cap compliant for the entire season. Yes, now that the cap rules, roster numbers have slipped, but I mean, and there's also rules where you can only have 4 call-ups with your American League team. The Jets have already used one of those already, I believe. So it's not that simple. But I'm also surprised. I mean, Murat, also get your opinion on this. Why don't you think the Jets used their ability to have access to other, like Jansen Harkins? Given how busy the Jets schedule was, how did Jansen Harkins go a month without playing at a time where they had a couple back-to-backs where, I understand part of it was, Nate Thompson missed, I think, 13 games at the start of the year, and the fourth line is not taxed because they only play 8 to 11 minutes. But there seemed to me to be a few times where it would have just made sense to get the fresh legs of a Jansen Harkins in the lineup. And also, too, I think you could apply that to the back end as well, where earlier in the year you could have maybe looked at getting, before if it was Niku or now if it was Heinola, Why were they just a little bit reluctant to do that?
I sincerely believe it's, once again, it's stubbornness, and it's a head coach's desire to play the game that's in front of him that night, as opposed to thinking about winning tomorrow's game or next week's game.
A tunnel vision approach, right?
Absolutely. I think he circles the game in front of him. He believes in that fourth line, that veteran fourth line. He believes in those veteran defensemen like Nathan Beaulieu, to the point where he would play him on the top pair with what we believe to have been a torn labrum at that time if the timing overlaps. And I think it's because it's a sincere belief that those are the best players, are the ones who give him the best chance to win. And there's a reluctance to think about things like load management. It's get the 2 points and worry about tomorrow. I think that can cost you in the long term, because like you, I agree that there were times where it just made sense. You take Ville Heinola on that road trip, for example, as injury insurance. He's your eighth defenseman at the time. There's some awkward rules with respect to quarantine if you try to return him to Manitoba when you're not in the same city. So there's only a couple of times where you could return him to the Moose. So he's not going to get in a lot of Moose games. But you also don't give him a month? He played the one time. He could have easily given another player a spell, especially if anybody's dealing with injuries. If you look at Derek Forbert's fall off in play and the slowness with which he got back after that giveaway to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on Monday night, I mean, is he at 100%? Is everybody at 100%? I guess my answer, and I don't know this, obviously, to anybody who's listening, I'm ranting about, I don't know that that's the answer, but I think it's old-fashioned. I think it's old-fashioned NHL thinking, is what I can interpret from my seat.
Well, they took Stanley on as the project, right? So this is the guy we're going to develop. He's played enough in the American Hockey League. We know what he can do at that level. So now he needs to play at the NHL level was the next step to see what he is, to learn about him this year. And so they didn't want to mix in another young guy on top of that. Is there any chance that they've seen Ville? They know that Ville can play in this league, between the contract status and the reality of where they would actually use him and put him in a position to succeed, which is not playing in the top four or on the top power play, which is where he should be, that they're like, we have Ville in the back pocket. We know that if we needed to go to a defenseman, that he could be that guy, and we don't need to see him, because the plan is not to use him. The only way he's playing is in an emergency situation anyway.
With the NHL not
being... Stanley needed the reps more than Ville at this level.
I mean, for me, KO, he was more readily accessible at the time when he was needed. With Heinola being in quarantine after the World Junior, I don't think that ever became a real factor. I think, to me, I've said this, Sean, off air. I think if the Jets expected Ville Heinola to be in their top six at the start of this season, they would have taken the same approach that the Toronto Maple Leafs took with Nick Robertson. They would have not bothered, even though they knew the value of sending him to the World Junior Hockey Championship.
He wasn't in the plans.
If they thought he was in the top six to start the year, they would have had him in training camp the entire time and said, you know what, Heinola has played in 2 World Juniors, as valuable as that would be, he's on the team. The only way he makes the team is by being in camp from day one. I think they did the right thing by sending him to the World Junior Championship for his long-term growth. But I also think that was a pretty big tell that he wasn't in their top six idea from the very start. Murat, what do you think on that?
I think that was a tell as well. I mean, what was it? Sami Niku, we had he's in the top 8 conversation way back when. Right. I think that Ville Heinola was in a similar situation. You also heard Paul Maurice sort of talk about the Manitoba Moose being Ville Heinola's first professional hockey against men. It was just a verbal typo. It was just a slip up of the tongue. Obviously, he knows he played in Liga, but I think that it also shows you that they really want to see him succeed here step by step. And the value of how well he played in Liga is more of an, okay, that's great, but show us here first. So there's a sense of slow playing there. And for me, though, that's why you leave him at home and get him as many Moose games as possible during that stretch in March, if you can. So that there's something awkward about that handling to me. There are waiver wire defensemen that you can plug and play as your 8th defenseman in case of injury. He wasn't even number 7 in case of injury on that trip. He was number 8, right? And I know that Nelson Nogier was hurt, so you're not going to go to that well. So I don't like Winnipeg's handling of Ville Heinola this year, and I think it happens from the start. I think your tell that he went to the World Juniors is right, though. I do think that it was a preconceived idea of his ideal development path.
But an extra year of ELC you're going to love.
until
other
he's
side.
more expensive because he's a year older, right? This isn't a defense-first defenseman like Logan Stanley, who's not going to put up a ton of points, and then after his 3-year ELC,
He's not going to put up a ton of points because he's not going to be on the power play where he should be, where he would be most successful.
Sure, but I believe,
and that goes back to coaching decisions, right? It does, whether you want to sugarcoat it or not, right?
for sure. I think so. I think that's where it comes from, because if you have Ville Heinola from age 20 to 23 versus 21 to 24 or whatever it is, I think one of them puts up more points and gets a bigger second contract. So maybe you have them for longer, but it's not automatically a good thing if you're trying to game the system that way.
It's fair.
A quick one. We were talking about goaltending before you came on too, Marat. How many games is Laurent Brossoit going to see, and do you see Laurent Brossoit starting Monday night, or does tonight's result change that potential plan?
I was trying to sneak over a tab and open it up and see if there's any back-to-backs before I got the.
There's one coming up.
Vancouver at the last week of the season.
So I mean, he definitely gets one in there, and maybe he gets one other game. I really think that the Winnipeg Jets are a go to the well that worked team, and Connor Hellebuck is the guy. So I want to say like the ideal split's 4-2, but if Connor Hellebuck gets 5 of them, I wouldn't be shocked at all. What did you guys come up with in terms of an answer, though?
Yeah, I think going in I had 5-2 going into tonight, but again, I also thought that tonight was a good. I realize why Hellebuck played. This is not hindsight for me. I thought that tonight was a good night to go to Brossoit, similar to how the Oilers used the psychology in their final meeting against the Jets, whereas Dave Tippett basically said, "We've owned you in the season series. If you beat us, you beat our backup. Big deal. If we beat you,
lose no confidence." Yeah,
exactly. If we beat you with our backup, well, hey, look how far you have to go." It was right out of the coach's. It was right out of the coach's manual. It's about page 422.
Subsection 5, paragraph 6. Yes, Kenny, we know that you've read it all. It is, are the Jets playing dramatically different than they have all season right now, and that's why they're on this losing skid? Or is it just the fact that they don't have Nikolai Ehlers in their lineup, who drove their offense, and Connor Hellebuck, the pucks aren't hitting him like they were earlier? Because the same grade A chances are happening, just a few more of them are squeaking in.
I'm happy to call it that. I really am. I also want to give Derek Forbort credit for a tremendous start, right? That month of January, first part of February as well was phenomenal. And suddenly you had most of, well, actually at that time, they were really the go-to pair, right? Because Josh Morrissey had a revolving door of partners, Pullman had a late start, all those sorts of things. So I guess there's been ebbs and flows, but maybe to your point, I think that it could be as simple as that. We used to talk in the media all the time that they hadn't lost 2 in a row, right? They hadn't lost 2 in a row. And so the stories come out, they're so resilient. Well, they hadn't won a whole lot of 2 in a row sets either at that stage, right? Maybe it'd be 2 and then 1 or 3 and then 1. They weren't going on a tear. And certainly the underlying numbers were never dominant. They at no time, no matter whose underlying numbers you use, were the 2017-18 dominant Jets. And so, yes, they had to finish.
Or you're using my eyes, it wasn't. They weren't dominant.
No, yeah, exactly. I think that the eye test is honest with the Winnipeg Jets. They're a counterpunching team that doesn't spend a whole pile of time controlling the puck in the offensive zone, and they spend a lot of time in there. Like, I don't see how there's incongruence between the eyes and the numbers on the Winnipeg Jets this season.
How do they find their offense without cheating, Marat? That's the $1 million question right now that can't be answered. Do you have a solution for them?
I mean, to an extent, I think that it starts specifically with not cheating. I liked Andrew Kopp's hockey is cyclical answer that he gave us the other day, because I think that not every back check turns into a goal, but most back checks turn into possession sooner. And possession sooner turns into a better odds of a breakout. And odds of a breakout turns into a better chance to get across that offensive blue line. The Jets don't have Dustin Byfuglien barreling up the right wing wall, taking a pass cross ice, and then it's 4-on-2 at the line. They're not attacking the line with numbers and then establishing the puck on the wall or anything like that. It really is a counterpunch relying on Mark Scheifele to do something special. Nick Ehlers when healthy, Kyle Connor, etc. So I don't know how you take the Jets, who scored, 6 goals on that homestand, and turn them into an offensive juggernaut. But I think you give them more chances to play to their strengths if you get a little bit more Ryan O'Reilly, Sean Couturier-esque back checking and back pressure from your Scheifele's, from your Connors, from your Blake Wheelers, from the guys that carry the bus, drive the bus, carry the mail. You know what I meant. Offensively, I think it really does need to be a turn in that way.
How about too? I mean, Sean and I talked about this on the pregame show. There was a stretch when the Jets were kind of rolling where their defense got a little bit more active, and also in terms of the pinching at the offensive blue line. But they got burned by it a few times. It didn't result in a loss in the first time, but it sort of got to be a dangerous situation where they were, back to 2018. That team wasn't a defensive juggernaut. They gave up a ton of odd man rushes, but they also generated so much by that aggressive play. Are you surprised they've scaled back that aspect of it?
Surprised? I don't think so, because I again think that it's a results-based decision-making process. So if they go on a really cold streak of getting burnt and the puck goes in, I think it's okay, we're backing right off of this idea. And I also think that there's something in a coach's mind where you're sort of compensating for the team's lack of dominant offensive blue liners by backing off. It looks to go well for a little while. Okay, I made the right decision. That's reinforced. I don't know at the end of the day, like in theory, math-wise, Winnipeg, we know, has better finishers than most other teams, right? If you trade chances, the exact same quality of chances, exactly 50-50, I think Winnipeg wins more games than it loses, right? Mark Scheifele makes great chances for himself and everybody. Kyle Connor is an incredible finisher. Canada's the only team that can really compete with that in Canada is Toronto, I think, and then when Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl is on the ice. But how do you get Winnipeg from 45% to 50%? I think that there's room for those pinching, for Tucker Pullman to jump in the rush, for them to fight for that blue line. But I don't know that. I really don't. I think a lot of times it's easy. I talked to a director of analytics, who said, yeah, people think that if you open it up in Winnipeg, you're going to win games 4-3 instead of losing them 3-1. You're probably going to lose them 7-4 kind of deal. So even in the analytics community, I don't think that open it up is automatically the answer, even though the finishing talent is what's best about the Jets.
What about you, KO? Do you think the Jets can abandon, again, not abandon defense, but how are they going to find their offensive game without cheating?
Without cheating, you can't. If you put that risk in your game, and I know that's the argument that the coaching staff is having with them, right? Because as soon as you get that in your head, it's not going to happen. The problem is getting real talented players who have gotten along for this year, for the last couple of years, on elite scoring and shooting talent, that we know we can do this pretty, and we can get our chances and a few chances and finish on it right now as they're composed and how they're playing. They need to look more like every other team in the NHL, which is you have to generate on quantity, not necessarily on quality, because they're not getting the quality is not there. The finish is not there in the last 10 games, right? So if you're not getting that, then what a coach who has coached in this league for 1,500 games is going to say is you just need tip-in goals. And what's funny is that it's almost the inverse of what they were talking about with hope plays. You're going for hope plays. We're going to put blind shots at the net and try to tip them in, and these players are reluctant to do that because they're like, no. Like Mark Scheifele would be like, that's not how I get things done. Trust me, it's going to work. The problem is it's not working. So then you get that conflict, right? And that's where I think they are. They're stuck in the middle of what the coaching staff knows they need to do to get out of this, what the players probably know too, but what they think and what they know has worked for them in the past. And without Nikolai Ehlers, all of a sudden your elite finishers are not as elite, but they haven't been all season because they don't create the offense without it coming from the back end and that push up the ice. I agree with you, Ken, that I like seeing that, but what you're getting is odd man rushes the other way. And now, and I'm guessing it's personnel related, that you don't have the recovery skills, right? That you did before. You don't have 19-foot tall Tyler Myers stretching out and lying down on a 2-on-1 and at least taking away the pass and Connor Hellebuck taking the save, right? So I think that's altered the equation.
Yeah, super interesting. How about again, we're not expecting the Jets to become a 40 per game Montreal Canadiens shot volume team, but Murad, is it just a matter of overthinking to a degree, or it's not just the offense drying up. sure they got 3 today, but you're not even generating 20, 25 a game. How does that get solved?
Yeah, again, like with all of this, I'm not sure, because if the answers were easy, I mean, I'm sure that the Jets would have sorted it out.
Yeah.
But one of the things, my biggest takeaway from watching the playoffs after Winnipeg was eliminated from the play-ins last year was that the Eastern Conference juggernauts and Western Conference juggernauts, hey, what up, Jeff? Most of the dominant teams at 5-on-5 can attack the middle of the ice in multiple different ways. Like a Barry Trotz New York Islanders team with less talent than the Winnipeg Jets can attack the middle of the ice from the half wall, from behind the net, from the blue line. And it's almost like basketball that once they have the in-zone possession established, they're moving the pucks to certain spots and running routes into the middle. I think Winnipeg is a little bit behind that in terms of its evolution. I think there's still some cutback play into the middle. I think there's still some hopeful thought. I still think there's a bit of fire it back to the point and then watch Logan Stanley bomb it from there as well. So I actually think, as strange as this sounds, because this is like countered most of what my default thinking on this is that they might be underthinking offense.
Okay.
Like
how so?
I traditionally think you give gifted players the puck and just let them do their thing, right? That has been how I've thought and talked and written for years and years and years. You can probably, if you're looking for receipts, those are the arguments I've made, not what I'm saying right now. But when I watch those teams dominate at 5-on-5, I feel more like they're running pre-drawn up routes that exploit space in the middle of the ice. And whether I'm in a glass case of them. Sorry, I like your comment section a lot.
Don't feel bad. Sean does this to me all the time. I'd be right mid-thought, and he throws a hilarious one in there, and I totally fumble. It's you haven't been on the Kenney and Renny show until you've been tripped up by one of the commenters, and then they start
media.
Yeah, and then they start coming back with accounts like Rennie's headband and Ken's water bottle. So we'll be looking for the Murat's guitar. Somebody's going to have to come up with that YouTube thing next.
Fair play. So I guess I'm not going to land on like the X's and O's that solve it all. That's for sure. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get us there. But just from that observation, I think that you see the Jets go to. I mean, they scored like, thanks to Avco Cup on Twitter, something like 50 of their 93 5-on-5 goals within 7 seconds of gaining the zone. Like, this is a team that is heavily dependent on get across the blue line and make a play as soon as you can. It's not succeeding coming off the wall. And I think that one of the reasons is because its best players on the wall, Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, are sort of, we know what to expect from them now. Cut back, passing in the middle. Like, we've seen it.
Yeah, I'm also curious too. I mean, I think that Paul Maurice is right that the rush chances diminish at this time of the year. But if the Jets are reliant on those things, how are they going to find another way to score? Is he basically challenging them to find other ways, or what can they do to, how do you alleviate that if you know that element of the game is being for sure shrunk, if not eliminated?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know what is the Paul Maurice ideal offense in this sort of situation, because we know he's referenced. Do you remember when Nick Ehlers played with Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele? I think it was 2018-19, if I have my years right, and they were just dominant. They scored so many goals, a little bit more goals than they actually controlled the flow of the play, but they scored a ton of goals. It was a great stretch. But he always pointed back to that December and said that wasn't the way we wanted to play. Too many seam passes, too much offense that disappears in the playoffs, right? So he wants what? He wants gain the line, get the shot, recover the mess on the wall, and then work from there. Is that what we've come to understand?
Yeah, I don't think so, but it's interesting. And again, that's why I say there's no easy solution, right? I mean, the Jets aren't going to become a grinding team. They're a skilled team, so I think you feel like you have to find a way to generate rush chances without cheating. And again, sure, going to the net. They've done a better job of going to the net and the dirty areas. But I don't see them, kind of turning into a St. Louis Blues where, you're getting all of this offense around the net by, getting to dirty plays. Yes, you have a couple of great finishers. And I mean, the other part too is that I know some folks want the defense to be active. They just don't have the personnel to be really all that active and generate from the back end right now either, do they?
You sort of have to point back to Villiers for that. We know that that's not the well that they're leaning on.
What about the Dylan DeMello outlet feed tonight to Paul Stastny? Knee high that he had to knock off. Make a ridiculous hand-eye play.
Great pickup. Hey, DeMello almost broke that goalless drought today. That was actually a really nice redirect on that play by, I think it was Andrew Kopp right on the backside there.
Yeah, that was a great rush. You saw him turn. He knew that something was coming, and then he made the redirect. I like that play. I like his step into his step and the look for Paul Stastny, though. I agree. Yeah, maybe a foot off the ice took some brilliance from number 25 to make it happen.
Beautiful. Well, it's 1:05 here already. We've gone long. We know, Murat, we've kept you longer than you like. Is there anything else that you want to address before we head out? We are going to have to give. I know I didn't highlight her comment, but I noticed that Haley made an appearance here and had a comment for you, Murat. I think so. Not sure if it was for Shirley or Haley, but she called you a babe, so I assume it was Haley. But
there's only one.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out to Haley. There you go. Sorry I didn't highlight your comment, but we appreciate all of our international viewers and commenters.
Beautiful. I love it. Thanks for having me on, Ken. Good to chat. Kevin, I missed you. It's been a long time. I missed you too, Murat. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'll go write some words and see how we sort it out.
Figure it out, Murat. Fix this team, damn it.
Have an awesome weekend. Thanks again for joining us. It was fun.
Right on.
Okay, KO, what else we'll wrap up pretty shortly here, but is there anything else, anything you've picked up on the
smashed up, I'm angry. There's high level of angst. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, Kenny.
No, okay.
Is where I'm at.
I
don't see how it's getting better.
Okay.
Right? Like, if it's not going to get better against Montreal, you know how Ottawa plays this team. Well, if you can't play well against Montreal, you can't play well against Ottawa. You get all you can out of what's left of Travis Green's team, and you can't beat Toronto and Edmonton. Geez, you're in tough here. Maybe a good one against the Flames. Maybe we got one against them.
You don't see any path to this getting sorted out?
I keep looking for it, but I honestly don't. And I go back to, this is why you don't go all in at the deadline, because they knew what they were, that it was precarious what they were doing. And Nikolai Ehlers is that good and that impactful on this team, right? And you cross your fingers that he's going to be around for the playoffs, and you get yourself sorted out into some semblance of something that works here once you get Lowry back in the mix. But I don't know what that is. Can you put Pierre-Luc with Kopp and Appleton? Have we seen that combination? That's a combo that I just thought of that I haven't seen.
No, it's true. But then who are you playing Lowry with?
Stastny and Wheeler.
Okay, I mean, I could see that. I could see that happening. I think
so
it's
that leaves you because who does that leave you with? Shifley with Vesalainen and Harkins. Like,
well, no. I mean, no. Then he would still have Ehlers, though, right? Connor and Ehlers would be available then to him.
If you have Ehlers, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. One quick one here, Jessica.
Yeah.
I know Jessica was frustrated. I tried sending her a quick note, but what do you think about this one? Do you think the Jets could conceivably miss the playoffs? I don't see it personally happening, but I realize things are tough for them right now, but it would have to be an epic collapse for them to miss. What about you?
No, they're going to make the playoffs, right? And sorry, with all due respect to Daryl Sutter. You know I'm a Sutterite. I spent a lot of time learning the ways of the Sutter and watching a lot of 2-1 boring as crap junior hockey games in my day. And I know the process can work. But no, they're not going to miss. I mean, could they finish fourth? Right now, it sure looks like they could, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
You know, and when you look at the matchups up ahead, like, for most other teams in the league, you'd look at Ottawa and say those are confidence builders. And I'm like, those are white knucklers at this point, right? To get through and to find a victory the way that they seem to match up and they seem to play. So they have to figure it out. I don't think they're going to miss. But today's game, unlike the Edmonton game where you could if you took it at face value of
Sure,
we did
yep.
some good things. They beat us on the power play. Connor's going to Connor, and that's the way that game went. And we just didn't generate enough offensively. This game, that shouldn't have been the same recipe. And this game, you had the lead. And this game, you got goals from your fourth line. And for me, for the no-show from the top guys in this game is your problem.
Yeah, no, fair.
Long and the short of it, right? Like, you need Mark Scheifele to beat somebody and to score. Like,
impose your will,
need.
right? Impose your will on the game, right?
Austin Matthews does remarkable things where the puck's on a stick for 2 seconds and it's in the back of the net.
Well, even Nick Suzuki imposed his will on this game, right? I mean, he's a kid right now. Quick one. I mean, great to have Scott Campbell, WHA Jet, and all around great human in here. For me, coaching change, I just don't see it happening, especially not at this stage. Just because, too, I mean, the Jets aren't going to implement a new system in the last 6 games of the regular season. And I don't think that, again, I understand teams have done it late in the season before, right? Devils did it, put Lou behind the bench. But the one thing for me, the Jets aren't bringing in a $5 million coach to replace Paul Maurice. In a pandemic, a guy is in year 1 of a 3-year extension.
That they built their program around.
Like, right, and believe in him.
He's a big part of what they do. So all that infrastructure is based around his thoughts. So that's why they've got to play their way out of it, right? Like, I don't see it happening.
No, me neither. And again, I totally understand a lot of fans are bringing that up. And again, I mean, Scott's a super smart guy who follows these things very closely. But for me, I don't think there is enough runway for that to make sense, even if they thought that was their last resort. And the other counter, again, I totally understand. Things are very rough for the Jets right now. There's no doubt about that. This is a lot of these other teams had their losing streaks earlier on.
Toronto did this. Toronto lost 6.
5 in a row before they got to Winnipeg, but now Toronto feels like they can win the cup. So again, I'm not saying the Jets are turning into a juggernaut overnight here, but I do understand the frustration for sure, but I don't see the coaching change as a fail-proof solution for the Winnipeg Jets. I just don't see that. And again, I also think that in a lot of cases, I totally understand it's easier. And again, Paul Maurice is the second longest tenured coach in the NHL. He's not going to be with the Jets forever. However, I mean, I think that the players in that room have shown that they're a capable team. They need to have their own piece of accountability. You find out what teams are made of when times are tough. When things are going great, of course you can learn about a team. You really learn about a team when you find out who's willing to dig in when they go through a 6-game losing streak. And that is what my expectation is for the Jets during the stretch drive. I don't know if they'll figure it out on Monday, but I expect they'll get some things figured out. And if they don't, the exit meetings are going to be very interesting. I mean, we probably won't hear the results, but we're certainly going to see the results when it comes to the offseason.
Yeah, a coaching change, just like the big ad at the deadline to me, was at the end of the day, this was going to be a coin flip in round 1 and probably round 2 if you did manage to win round 1, right? So if you knew that going in, you roll with what you have, which is what they're doing. And they were remarkably healthy all year, and they hit a rough patch here, and it's impacted them because it's totally thrown them out of rhythm for what they do. So I don't see a change coming that way for that reason. And they're still going to go in and have a coin flip chance of, if Bucky can make the saves that we've seen him make before in a series, can he out-goaltend Mike Smith in a series? I know he hasn't done it in the regular season, but the playoffs are another story, right? And that's what you're pinning your hopes to. And so they're not going to change this group. It's the same reason we're not going to see massive changes or guys injected on the back end, because it is what it is. They're going to let them play their way out of it or play their way out of the playoffs in 4 games and then assess and then go forward and then make changes. As you said, Ken, there's financial implications too, right? You're in a pandemic. There's all those reasons and all those factors as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And again, it's certainly a cause for debate, and we certainly understand that there's tons of frustration. Sean and I have been saying this. There's been the therapy sessions have been in full effect here for the last 6 games. This losing skid, it seems interesting. So funny that that last game the Jets played on that road trip where they handled the Leafs pretty easily. Yes, Matthews was not playing, but there was the template on display for all to see. Suddenly, that seems it's the opposite of the old. Items in the rearview mirror are closer than they appear. Well, actually, in this case, it feels like it's an eternity ago. Can the Jets get that figured out? Well, that's the multi-million-dollar question. For now, folks, enjoy your weekend. Hope this was able to hope this was able to help. KO, always a pleasure.
Helped. I'm the worst Jets therapist ever.
I would not ever say that, but really appreciate having you down, folks. Thanks for tuning in droves. It's super great to see, and you can catch us on the replay on Twitter. You can catch us on our YouTube channel, and you can get us wherever you get your podcasts. If you missed it this morning, we just had a fantastic show with Gene Principe of Sportsnet and Kevin Weeks from the NHL Network joined us. They both had some unreal stories to tell, and we're really enjoying that aspect of it. Quick humble brag, we just passed 11,000 downloads for podcasts today, so we thank you for all your support on that end of things. And again, once again, KO, thanks for joining us. Everyone in the chat room, thanks for being keeping your thoughts coming, keeping it real, and we'll see you again after Monday's game. Good night, everybody.
See ya.